How many times do we need to hear this song of death? Another psychotic killer destroys multiple lives using guns, whether they were legal or not, no matter who he was targeting. When do we reach the breaking point in stopping the madness, and how do we do it? We'll talk about madness. It's a good word to use when describing what American lawmakers are doing at the moment to those who gave their lives and health to the aftermath of 9/11. It's sheer madness what Putin is doing at the moment in Syria. But why be shocked? Our expert has seen this coming in Syria for generations. And when governments help big business break the law, Volkswagen, merely the tip of a very dirty iceberg. Let's close the week in style and make a few points. I'm Ed Berliner, and this is The Hardline for Friday, October 2nd, 2015.
There's been another mass shooting in America, this time in a community college in Oregon. That means there are more American families, moms, dads, children, whose lives have been changed forever.
Perhaps the time has come to realize the Second Amendment to the Constitution needs to be rewritten. Maybe we need to change the mental health laws in this country and learn everything about someone who wants to own a weapon. Or maybe we need to get smart and start arming more security in public places to shoot first and ask questions later when people like the Oregon Community College killer get started. And maybe, just maybe, we need to realize this is the culture we have made, and we have to make intelligent decisions instead of knee-jerking every time something like this happens. And we find ourselves right back here at the beginning. So let's get serious, shall we? Representing law enforcement and those boots on the ground in the fight against anyone who picks up a weapon in anger, former New York City police officer and current radio talker on 1290 WJNO in West Palm Beach, John Cardillo. And from the legal aspect, she's an attorney with the Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence, Allison Anderman. I want to thank you both for joining us, and I know that we've had this discussion before. I hope we don't have to have it many more times after this, but here we go. John, to you first. In light of what happened, John Hanlon is the sheriff in Douglas County, where the shootings took place. He has written Joe Biden in the past, the vice president, asking him do not change the Second Amendment. And what he says, and I quote, gun control is not the answer to preventing heinous crimes like school shootings. All right, John, then what is the answer?
100% agree with the sheriff. Gun-free zones and gun control kill. This shooter reloaded. This shooter asked questions. Are you a Christian? Which our president ignored, by the way. Are you a Christian? One armed good guy on that campus would have saved lives. They could have put a round between that shooter's eyes when he stopped to reload, when he stopped to ask the questions. That school had one unarmed security guy.
Hang on, John, I'm going to stop you there 1 second. All right, one unarmed security guard, I get it. But one guard on a place this big, one guy in one building somewhere. Really, what difference could one guard with a gun have made if he's on the other end of the campus?
Not a guard. I'm all for campus carry. Let law-abiding trained citizens and faculty, if they have a concealed weapons license in that state or honored by that state, there is no reason a campus should be a sitting duck zone, a free fire zone for criminals. They were sitting ducks, fish in a barrel because of the moronic progressive policies of gun control and gun-free zones that are proven to kill time and again. Look, this guy didn't follow laws against murder. He wasn't going to follow gun laws.
All right. Allison Anderman, now let me get to you. John mentions the words law-abiding. We've heard this before. People say that if you have law-abiding citizens who are carrying, you will not have an individual armed, and we believe he might have had 6 or 7 guns with him at the time. 7 guns maybe back at his home, the shooter in Oregon. But if you would have people armed and responsible, this wouldn't happen. I'm gonna guess that you don't agree with that.
Actually, Ed and John, there was someone who was legally armed on the campus. He was another student and a veteran, I believe. And he made the conscious decision not to get involved because he recognized rightfully that doing so would have created more harm than good. He understood that law enforcement was moving in and that with the presence of him and his gun, law enforcement would have possibly been confused as to whether or not he was the shooter. And he made the very smart decision not to get involved. And I could, if you want, bring up other situations where people, law-abiding people, did have guns in active shooter situations and not only did not fail not only failed to disarm the shooter, but actually in certain cases created more harm. And I just want to say that I hear what John is saying, and I understand that John believes very deeply that guns make you safer and that having more guns would prevent this type of violence. But we have to take a step back from our emotional reactions and look at the facts. And the facts that have come out of numerous studies produced by our country's most revered academic institutions show just the other side of that, which is that more guns make us less safe. And if guns made us safer, we would be the safest country in the world. And in fact, we are the least safe from gun violence in the developed world.
All right, John, I heard you down there a little bit. You had something to say. Go ahead and answer back.
First of all, though, that is completely inaccurate. Dr. John Lott out of UCLA, the most revered economist who studies gun violence, wrote a book, More Guns, Less Crime, and when Obama commissioned the CDC to research gun violence, the report backfired in the White House's face. The Center for Disease Control determined in December of 2013 that in areas where legal gun ownership was more prevalent, like Florida, personal crime was less. And with all due respect to Allison, I was a street cop. I don't carry a gun daily. I'm carrying now. I don't carry a gun daily because I was a cop. I carry a gun daily because I saw what happened to victims who did it. Allison, I don't think, has that experience. So a lot of theory and a lot of academic supposition is a wonderful thing, and I'm glad she's safe in her office doing that. But I was on the street engaging bad guys with guns, shot at in multiple incidents. When bad guys with guns come calling, you don't call unarmed police. Good guys with guns stop bad guys with guns.
Okay, Allison, and I know that we can go back and forth on this and we can spend months on it, and we probably will. But let me ask you then, straight out, what, in your opinion, then, is the answer? You're not going to take guns away from everybody in America. You're not going to change the Second Amendment overnight. So how do we stop this from happening?
We don't need to change the Second Amendment at all. We can protect the rights of lawfully abiding gun owners and those people who want to use their weapons for hunting and sport shooting and self-defense. There's nothing about the Second Amendment that prevents reasonable, effective policies to keep guns away from people who want to do harm. For example, background checks. We need background checks.
Okay, how deep do you want to go in the background checks, so Allison? Because here are the people now, and I'm going to tell you, there's people out there saying, you're not going to get into my background because then the government has my background there. You're not going to dig around in my past. That's not fair. That's not what this government is about. So how far do you go in those background checks?
Background checks are meant to determine whether or not someone is legally prohibited already from possessing a firearm. Right now, in the vast majority of states in our country, someone who has a conviction that would prevent him or her from legally possessing a gun can go buy a gun from a private seller, no question asked.
But here's the thing. One second, Allison. Here's the thing, and very briefly, because we only got a couple of minutes left here. Chris Harper Mercer, the Oregon gunman, he didn't have any convictions. And he had legal guns. So how do you stop that?
Right. Well, first of all, we have a patchwork of inconsistent laws in the country that allow guns to flow very easily from state to state, and it makes it very easily for people to get their hands on guns. And sure, not every situation. There are lots of guns. There are lots of laws that need to be implemented to create a really strong framework, but background checks in and of itself can stop lots of people who want to use guns to do harm from acquiring them perfectly legally. And we know that since the Brady Act was implemented, there have been over 2 million people who have been prevented from purchasing a gun because they failed a background check.
Let me stop you there. I only got 90 seconds left. John, go ahead. I know you're chomping at the bit to answer back.
Well, again, I don't think Allison has ever purchased a firearm. I'm a collector, and she's dead wrong. In every state, you must undergo the National Instant Criminal Check System, which is federal. Face-to-face sales, which she's referring to, are less than 0.01% of all gun sales, and typically between collectors. These people are not responsible for crime. Gangbangers are responsible for crime. Background checks
Wait a minute, John. This guy in Oregon wasn't a gangbanger.
Right, but he bought his guns legally, Ed. And this is a tragic incident, but it's one incident. You don't set public policy for hundreds of millions of people. Bad things happen. We're not Minority Report, the Tom Cruise movie, with psychics in a tank predicting future behavior.
Okay,
we
now
live in a free society.
I've only got 40 seconds left, so I'm going to ask you both a direct question. I want a 15-second answer. Succinct. Allison, Give me one way to stop this from happening. Your opinion. How do we stop it? Background checks?
Congress needs to act to pass a framework of effective, responsible laws that protect children in schools and you and me and our communities from our epidemic of gun violence that allows 100,000 people to be shot each year, more than any other industrialized nation in the world.
Okay, John, to you, 15 seconds. The answer.
Israeli model. Armed teachers allow campus carry. Good guys with guns stop bad guys with gun. Very simple.
You're not afraid then of some sort of a mass shooting happening on a college campus?
Absolutely not. I trust my fellow law-abiding Americans. Trust them implicitly.
Okay, there we go. Boy, I'll tell you, lady and gentlemen, we're going to come back and we're going to look at this a whole lot more because there's more to this and we have to stop ourselves from getting always back to the same spot every single time it happens. You're both right, and we've got a lot to discuss here in the future. Allison Anderman, John Cardillo, I want to thank you both for being here. We will continue to cover this story. On deck, a government spitting on those who put their lives on the line September the 11th.